Hello, welcome back to my channel. And welcome to the 5th episode of Taste Test, wherein I test other booktubers' taste and see whether our tastes align. In today's video, as you can probably tell by the title, I'm going to be reviewing Emma from Emma Books. I am super excited for this video for two reasons. One, I absolutely adore Emma and her channel, and number two, this is the first taste test that I'm doing where I'm attempting to read a booktuber's faves in their birth month. If you're seeing this, I believe this video is going to go up after Emma's birthday. Hopefully this is a nice homage to Emma in her birth month. Super excited. Like I said, Emma was one of the first booktubers that I started watching before I decided to make my own channel. To this day, she's consistently posting some of the coolest and best recommendation videos that I've seen on YouTube. So I'm super excited. I always get new recommendations from her from watching her videos. The first book that I'm going to be reading for this video is a book that I got from Emma's favorite books of 2018 video, and it is Heretics Anonymous. This book is about a boy who ends up going to Catholic school. He is a staunch atheist, but he ends up getting in leagues with some other people at his school who are heretics or don't necessarily believe in all of the things that are being taught at their school. Some are Jewish, some are Catholic, but just don't necessarily believe in all the Catholic teachings or want reform in the church. So it's about them coming together and trying to kind of fight against some of the injustices in their school. I think this is also going to be kind of a character journey for our main character, figuring out like maybe it's okay to respect other people's religions, or at least that's the vibe I got from reading the synopsis. So I'm really excited to read this book. This is definitely one of the books that I knew for sure was going to be on this list because I really started watching booktube in 2017, 2018, and I just remember Emma absolutely gushing about this book, so I have really high hopes for this one. The second book on the list is another one from Emma's favorite books of 2018 video. Again, this is one that I think kind of goes with Emma Books brand. It's one that I hear her talking about very frequently, and it is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This is sort of a Christmas Carol retelling from what I understand, and it is about our main character, Holly Chase, who has been through some kind of shitty things. I think she, as a result, is like in purgatory or hell. Basically, she is Scrooge, and she is trying to kind of right some wrongs that have happened in the past. And then the third book on my list, again, is another one from Emma's favorite books of 2018 video, and it is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I mean, again, this is just classic Emma. I don't think I could put together a list on Emma's favorite books without including this book. This is one that I'm very hesitant to go into because I have not liked a single book from Marissa Meyer in the past. This one is about superheroes and I want to say anti-heroes, which should be interesting. Like I said, very tentative to go into this because I've not liked anything from Marissa Meyer in the past. It's not that her writing is terrible, just none of her characters really speak to me, so I'm hoping in this book I definitely connect more with the characters. The plot is interesting to me. I don't have anything against superhero books, but very interested to give this one a try. Hopefully we're gonna love it. The next book is from Emma's all-time favorite standalones video, and for this book I picked Every Last Word. From my understanding, this book is about a girl with OCD and kind of about her navigations through high school, trying to kind of make friends, and I think she ends up maybe falling for a boy from what I read from the synopsis. I don't know much more than that. I think this book is going to be kind of a hard-hitting slice of life contemporary, which I think will be kind of a nice juxtaposition with some of the other sorts of books that I'm reading for this video. And this is one that I'm like excited for because I don't know that much about it, but I've heard only good things from Emma and from other people. And then lastly, this is a book that I said I would never read because I have read literally, I want to say 90% of Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist, and I have not loved a single one of her books, but I'm going to be attempting to read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I do have the audiobook for this, which I think is going to be helpful both in getting through the book and in creating a more enjoyable experience, because I've heard that the audiobook for this is like the best way to read it. But anyway, from my understanding, this book is about Daisy Jones, who is a part of a band called Daisy Jones and the Six, kind of a Fleetwood Mac inspired thing, I believe, and it's kind of about how this band got together and why they quickly fell apart. I know there's some sort of questionable content in here in regards to cheating and kind of gray morality, which I think Taylor Jenkins Reid tends to do with all of her characters. They all tend to be deeply flawed. I think this one will be particularly interesting because it has a whole cast of characters, and I don't think many of Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books focus on such a big scope, I guess, such a big group of people. But since this is like full cast audio, I'm hoping that even if I don't absolutely love the book, at least I enjoyed the experience. I don't know. I'm very nervous. But that's pretty much it. I think without further ado, we can get into the vlog portion of this video. Alright, it is the day after I posted my Choose Your Own Adventure video. If you haven't seen that, you should go watch it. But after I posted that video, I was like, okay, I immediately want to jump into this taste test. I'm ready to try Emma's favorites. So I actually started reading Heretics Anonymous a couple of weeks ago. I got about halfway done, and I actually decided to pick it up on audio because I was doing a lot of stuff around the house when I decided to pick this book up, and the audiobook was available at my library, and I said, fuck it, let's do it. So I'm halfway through the book, and I thought I would kind of tell you guys my thoughts so I can go ahead and finish that book today. This story is about our main character named Michael, who is forced to go to Catholic school. He just moved to a new town and his dad got him an in at this Catholic school, even though his whole family is not religious. But it's a really good school and Michael is attending, but he is typical teenager, just very like anti-establishment and like, why the fuck am I going to this school? So it's really interesting to read his perspective and kind of the way that he is navigating life going to this Catholic school. And the book is called Heretics because he ends up joining this group of like misfits at his school, people that don't necessarily agree with the administration or the Catholic faith. One of the members is Catholic, but she doesn't necessarily love all of the teachings. She would love to be a priest herself. She wants a more feminist Catholicism. And then all of the other members tend to either be Jewish or pagan or atheist, you know, have different views, and their goal is to kind of correct some of the injustices at their school. There's a video that they have to watch about sex education, and it is completely, you know, full of false information and definitely comes from an abstinence only stance. So they decide to like edit the video before anyone can see it. And so they've just kind of been doing their own thing, doing their own antics. In addition to that, Michael is falling for Lucy, who is a member of Heretics Anonymous, along with him, obviously. She's the one that wants to be the Catholic priest. But on top of that, Michael's also dealing with his home life and his relationship with his father. That's probably the part of the story that actually interests me most, which sounds kind of weird, but I really like how convincing the family dynamics and family relationships are. And Michael's, I guess, bitterness and anger towards his dad is something that feels very teenage. It feels very real and raw. He is upset that his dad is never around anymore, and yet he seems to have so much control over Michael's life, and Michael feels like that's pretty unjust. It's like, if you're not going to be a part of the family, how are we supposed to be acting like a family? So I definitely understand where he's coming from. Thus far, I'm enjoying the story. I don't know that I'm connecting with Michael on a ton of levels, mostly because I've never been to Catholic school. I think what him and his friends are setting out to do is super admirable, and I get it, but I don't know, I feel kind of removed from these teenage struggles. I will say that our author is doing, like I said, a really, really good job at writing a convincing and interesting and complex main character, especially since she isn't a dude, but she's writing a dude very well, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not a dude, so I can't completely relate. Like, I can't speak to like the representation of the maleness of it, but it feels pretty authentic. And I feel like if you enjoy John Green books, you would probably really enjoy this. I'm not saying that they're the same. The characters in this are a lot less pretentious, but it's got that easy readability and it feels just very fun, I guess. Not fun, but it's got similar vibes. I feel like that's a bad thing to say, but it does have similar vibes. At the moment, I feel like this is going to be a 3-star read for me. I'm liking it, but I don't know that it's something that I'm personally really connecting with. So I'm going to keep reading. I'll probably just update you guys when I'm done. I can't anticipate anything crazy happening. Oh, I look like a whole mushroom. Okay, so I have finished Heretics Anonymous, and I think I'm going to give this book 3 stars. It was a super enjoyable read. I just don't know that it's something that's really going to have like a long-lasting impact on me. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. The primary reason, I think, is that Michael as a character, I don't think that he went through enough of a change or like a growth throughout the story, and that's really what I wanted to gain from this. I wanted him to go from someone who was ignorant about religion and sort of like bigoted against people that are religious to a place of understanding, acceptance, etc. And I think he eventually kind of got there. I just don't know that it was for the right reasons. It seemed like his primary motivation for the entire story really was to get with Lucy, and I get that. I'm not trying to say that like you have to have these altruistic reasons for wanting to understand religion, but it just seemed a little bit insincere that the only reason why he felt it was necessary to become accepting was because someone that he thought was like cute happened to be religious. And I guess you could argue that there's other reasons why he liked this girl and it wasn't just because she was cute, but I just didn't really pick up on that a ton. And also on top of that, I kind of don't like how the parental I don't know what to call it, fight, argument, whatever, was solved. We find out, I guess this is kind of a spoiler, not really, that Michael's dad grew up pretty poor, and that's the reason why he is someone who works so hard at work. He grew up not having enough and he wanted to provide for his family, but he never throughout the story until the very end tells Michael that, and I just find that super weird. I'm not saying that you have to reveal your trauma to your children, but it seems weird that you wouldn't know that about your parent, that they were poor growing up. I don't know, maybe my parents are just really open with me, but I knew a fair amount at least about how my parents grew up, especially if you're ever around your grandparents. You're gonna kind of have an understanding a little bit of the economic situation that your parents grew up in. I don't know, it just seemed a little odd to me that at the very end Michael was becoming appreciative of what his parents did for him because his dad used to be poor, and like now he understands his dad's motivation. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's like a bad motivation. It's weird to me that that was revealed when he's like 16 or 17. I don't know. It was just sort of a weird interaction, and you think you have to read the book to kind of understand what I'm talking about, but I didn't love that. It seemed like everything in general was wrapped up just a little bit too conveniently conveniently for my liking and not in a satisfying way. It was like, here someone has to like, you know, like I said, reveal their trauma or whatever to get Michael's acceptance. It also takes Lucy kind of yelling at him to understand that he has a pretty good life and that he should just shut the fuck up. So he seemed a little bit whiny at the end. Maybe that's just me as an adult judging a little too harshly. I think this is an awesome book, and I think it's really important, especially for like the age demographic in which the characters are a part of. I guess if you're in your teen years, I think this is a great book. I think had I read this when I was a teenager, it would have really helped me because I was a bit of an asshole, especially when it came to religion. I was like, I'm not religious, like religion's stupid. So I think this would have been nice for me to read and, you know, become a more respectful youth. I think a lot of teens are not necessarily the most accepting, and you kind of have to learn to be less judgmental. So that was kind of soapboxy, but all of that to say, I think this is a perfectly suitable book, perfectly fine book. Maybe not the most memorable or like well suited for me. I can totally understand why Emma likes it. It was a really fun read. It was very readable, and I would like to read more from this author in the future. Anyway, I have since started The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. And I'm really liking it. This book is not at all what I expected. I mean, I knew what the premise was going in. Obviously, it's like about this girl who, you know, didn't necessarily live her life right, blah, blah, blah. She ends up becoming a Scrooge type character. I didn't realize that's only the introduction of the book, and things kind of get a little bit more interesting from there. And I also didn't expect her to be such a like snarky character, but snarky in a fun way. Like, it kind of gives me mild Scream Queens vibes, like just the way that she has such a fucking attitude and she's like really rude to people. And I'm not suggesting that anyone act that way in real life, but like it's kind of fun to read about, so I'm kind of enjoying this. I think it's fun. I mean, I'm only 2 chapters in, so I can't really say too much about the plot, but it is different than I expected. And I always struggle with like how much I should spoil in these vlogs because I want to be able to discuss the things I like and don't like, and sometimes that really hinges on plot points. But this really deals with people trying to de-Scrooge other people, I guess. Our main character is someone who is in a position now where she can help other people kind of turn their life around, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not she's successful at that. We'll see. I don't actually know because, again, 2 chapters in, but I will keep you guys posted. This is kind of just what I needed right now, like something kind of stupid but maybe potentially meaningful. I don't know. We shall see. Okay, so I finished The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand, and I think I'm going to give this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed this, which is kind of not that surprising given that I have read another Cynthia Hand book and also gave that book 4 stars. They are very different books. I think it was The How and the Why that I read, which was a story about adoption and being adopted. This is obviously very different than that, but I think Cynthia Hand does a really great job at creating realistic and flawed main characters and having very great endings, I gotta say. Like, her endings are always really top notch. I was scared that this one was going to end kind of sadly, but it didn't. It was very just perfect and fitting for what our character went through. I just really liked this. I haven't really told you guys much about the plot of this book. That is kind of a good thing, I think, because I want you guys to just pick it up. It was a really fun treat, and I think this would be perfect any time of year, but particularly around Christmas time. Just a story about kind of becoming a better person almost, and I think it's done in a clever and really fun way. It doesn't feel preachy at all, which you guys probably know is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Really can't stand preachiness from authors in books, no matter what they're preaching. I don't like it. I like to come to conclusions on my own. So I really like the way that she handled some of the topics in here. Nothing was really like hard-hitting per se, but just topics about how people should treat others and, you know, the typical Christmas Carol Scroogey things I thought were handled really cute and like well done in here, if that makes sense. So I'm really glad that I read this. I think I want to reread this around Christmas time. I could definitely see this being a book that I come back to year over year, which is always fun because I do physically own it, so I'm just gonna keep it on my shelves, which has not been the case lately. A lot of the books that I've been reading for my videos, I've just wanted to immediately unhaul, so it's nice to have one that, while it wasn't like the perfect 5-star read for me, it was still really fun and definitely something I'm going to revisit. So really enjoyed this, and I would definitely recommend you pick it up because it's super fun and a good time. So what I'm hoping is also going to be super fun and a good time is Renegades by Marissa Meyer, which is what I'm starting on next. I decided to just go in order of like how I talk to you about the books in the beginning of this video. I normally just kind of pick up whatever. Thankfully, I was able to find this book on audio, which, thank fuck. It was available on Hoopla. I don't have the greatest of histories with Marissa Meyer's writing. I'm holding out hope that this might be good. And also, I saw something recently, it's been going around on Twitter, people matching their Myers-Briggs personality with characters in books or whatever. And one of the characters, I think Nova, one of the main characters in Renegades, is the same Myers-Briggs as me, INTJ. I don't know, it gets me a little bit more excited for this book. Like I said, going in with an open mind, trying to stay really positive, I'm not sure. I'm very unsure about this book. Okay, so I'm like 40% into Renegades and it's basically sky high. I am enjoying it more than I thought I would, but it's also just as dumb as I thought it would be, if that makes sense. I think the overwhelming feeling I get when reading Marissa Meyer's work is that it's just a little bit too juvenile for me. I am someone who really enjoys YA fantasy and YA contemporary, and I tend to, I think, prefer young adult fantasy because it tends to read a little bit older and tends to be something that I just don't think about the age demographic, right? Like I don't think about the ages of the characters, and I don't have to rationalize with myself like, oh, they're 16, like I should just, you know, let it be. The characters in this book aren't super immature, but I would say just the tone of this book is a little bit young for me. Again, like I kind of knew that it would be like that going in, but it is slightly better than I thought it would be. So let me kind of explain the plot. This book is about superheroes and supervillains basically, but in sort of a convoluted way that I think was kind of unnecessary. But essentially what happened was many years ago, the world was completely in chaos, and then these anarchists took over. They were sort of vigilantes, but they took care of the world, I guess. Like they just made sure that people were fine, and they kind of like fought against crime. After the anarchists took over, the renegades took over after them. They kind of put the anarchists out of business, and our main character Nova was the descendant of one of the anarchists, so she wants anarchy to come back even though the renegades are in charge now. It's just a little bit convoluted. I'm like, why did we need like 3 or 4 different time periods in history to be explained to us when really this is just about like what the current situation and climate is like? It was a little annoying for me as a reader, but essentially our story follows Nova and Adrian. Nova is part of the anarchists, Adrian is part of the renegades. He is the son of one of the deceased renegades, and he has been taken in by 2 of the current renegades. So the renegades, I guess you think of them as superheroes. They are kind of famous in this town or this city. I honestly can't remember the name of the city, but you know, they go on like parade floats and they have costumes and basically everything you would think of when you think superhero. And then the anarchists are sort of painted as villains. They're not necessarily villainous. I would say they're just kind of like anti-hero. And yeah, that's sort of the general background for the story. Currently, our main character Nova is trying to kind of infiltrate the renegades. She is supposed to be taking down one of the top renegades, and she missed her shot the one time that she was like able to get in direct like line, you know, direct line of vision to kill him. She didn't do it, so now she is having to infiltrate the renegades, and the way she did this is kind of Sky High-esque. She ends up having to try out to become a part of the renegades, and there's a few different teams on renegades. Not everybody that is a member of the renegades is necessarily like in the front lines or like a famous superhero, but all of them have some sort of power, and you have to kind of prove that your power is good enough to become part of the renegades. If you have a power at all, you're called a prodigy. You could be an anarchist or renegade, whatever, but like if you have a power, you're a prodigy. So Nova, I can't remember exactly what her actual power is, but when she tries out, she claims that her power is insomnia. She has to kind of like go in undercover because her anarchist like self, Nightmare or whatever is her like name, has been on the radar of the renegades. Like they're trying to get her, so now she has to kind of like assume a new identity and try to infiltrate them. So that's all very convoluted to explain, but also the story is a little convoluted. The story is good. I think it could be a little bit more straightforward to make it interesting. It's weird because the like setup for the world I think is convoluted, but the story itself is pretty straightforward, and I don't really anticipate it being something that really takes me by surprise. Enjoyable enough to passively listen to. This is definitely like not a favorite of mine so far. I'm hoping that that turns around, but I think my problem is that the characters, like I said, they read a little bit young. The story reads a little young, and I just don't connect with either of the characters. I don't feel like they have enough background for me to really care, or enough motivation beyond just like, I want to take down the other side. So I would like to get more into that, and I think it could be interesting to see Adrian and Nova interact because now they're like in the same place, and kind of see how their dynamic unfolds. So I don't know. Interested. I'm not that far into it, so I don't know really where the plot is heading, but I'm, I guess, interested enough to continue. So I'll update you guys probably when I'm done with this. Even though it's a really long book, I don't really foresee myself having crazy thoughts on it. I have no idea what to rate this book. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Today's been fucking crazy. It's like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I literally just finished Renegades. I've had so much shit that's happened today, mostly work related, that I don't want to get into, but it has really stifled my plans to post this bright and early tomorrow morning. It's fine, it'll get done, it'll be up by like noon or so, whatever. This was so predictable, and I'm just honestly kind of in awe of how predictable it was. I guessed the plot twist that happened at the end of the book right at the beginning of the book, which is not like the worst thing in and of itself. I'm not upset about that. I just think that the general lack of interesting plot, coupled with the fact that I could guess the plot twist, sort of made it a lackluster reading experience. Now, was this terrible? Absolutely not. Were the characters like the worst thing I've ever read? Also, no. But I wanted so much more from this. I wanted it to be very subversive almost, because you're doing a hero anti-hero thing, and I wanted it to be different, turn tropes on its head, etc., and it really just stuck to a predictable script. I think if you like Sky High and you want something just kind of readable and easy and you're not expecting a lot from this going in, I think you're really gonna enjoy it. But for me, I was just like, eh. But I think a big part of that is that I kind of knew going in that this probably wouldn't be for me, given that I don't love Marissa Meyer's writing. I think if you like her writing, this book is more of the same from her, so I think you might enjoy it, especially since it kind of reminded me a bit of Cinder, even though it's obviously not set in the same kind of universe, and whatever. It's similar vibes, so if you like those, you'll probably like Renegades. That being said, I feel like I understand why Emma likes it. It's a very lighthearted and fun book, and I think the main character is very strong and kind of interesting to read about. I think she gets more complex as the story goes on, so I think I get it. I get why Emma likes it. But that leads us into our next book, I guess. I'm going to start in on Every Last Word by Tamara, I don't know how you say that, Ireland Stone. This one's going to be a completely different change of pace, so I'm hoping it has a good effect on me. It's about a girl in high school with OCD, and I think it's kind of a love story, but also maybe her kind of like coping with her mental illness, something like that. So interested to give this one a try. It's pretty short. I'm definitely going to finish this one tonight. I think my plan is to read Daisy Jones tomorrow and just really like wake up bright and early and get that done and really like let it sink in. I could finish both of these today, but I really just want to give both of these the proper trial that they deserve and really get to test them. So I'll update you guys when I know a little bit more about this book. I don't know hardly anything. This is probably the book that I know the least about. So I'm gonna dive right in and I will get back to you guys later tonight. Okay, I am halfway done with Every Last Word and I'm enjoying it. I wouldn't say it's the most memorable or impactful young adult contemporary that I've ever read, but I'm not hating it, which is good. I'll take it. It's about this girl whose name I literally can't remember because I'm listening on audio, and for some reason, like, that just doesn't stick with me. Oh, Samantha. Sam, that's her name. Anyway, she is kind of, I don't want to say living a double life, but we start out and it's the summertime. She's swimming, she's having a good time, but it opens up with her having this kind of episode related to her OCD, and we find out pretty quickly that her friends are super shitty and she doesn't feel like she can share her OCD with them. She has been kind of suffering for the past 5 years from her OCD. She does see a therapist and it's been a very positive experience for her, which I appreciate because I don't think we see a lot of good therapy representation in books. But like I said, she's kind of living this double life because in the summer she swims, she has a good time, she's Sam, she has a whole different group of friends, and then during the school year she has a group of really shitty bitchy friends. What do they call them? Like the 8-pack or something stupid like that. But it's just this group of girls. They don't help our main character Sam's mental health very much. So her senior year, she finds a way to kind of cope with the things going on. I think maybe one of her old friends, I'm not really sure how this person's related to her, but someone basically brings her into their sort of poetry club, and Sam is sort of forced to face these people that she's been shitty to in the past because people from her past are in the poetry club, but she finds it as an outlet to express herself and to just use as a place of catharsis. So that's sort of where we're at right now. I am enjoying it. I'm liking it now that we're kind of moving more into the plot and seeing her sort of atone a little bit for the past things that she's done. You can tell that Sam really doesn't necessarily like her friend group and that she would like to get away from them, but she's just a little bit too cowardly, and a part of her still wants to be part of the in crowd, so that's interesting. But I'm hoping that at the end of this story she kind of finds her place and understands that she doesn't need to be friends with people who are detrimental to her mental health and people that don't necessarily have her best interests at heart. I am feeling okay about this. I'm a little bit bored, but that's how I usually feel about young adult contemporaries, unless it has some sort of like super impactful ending. Maybe this one will. I don't exactly know, seeing as I'm only halfway through. It is quite a short book, which I'm appreciating, and I like that this book definitely has a different feel than any of the books that I have read for this video or just in a while. It tackles mental health in a way that is very realistic but not depressing, which I'm really liking. I think oftentimes authors can kind of take that approach to mental health, and of course struggling with mental health is not the best or the most glamorous, but it doesn't have to be this thing that just completely wrecks and ruins your life. And I think it's nice to have varying levels of like functionality of people with mental health issues in your novels. So I think this is a really cool approach, something that I haven't seen before. So I like that, you know, her mental health is a part of her, but it's obviously not the forefront, you know, of the story. It's just a component. So in general, I don't know. I will say, I need to just like include this right now. I think part of why I'm not super enjoying a lot of these books is just, you know, quarantine season. I want to kind of recognize that my mental health personally has just been like up and down, and day to day it affects my reading for sure, like my enjoyment of books. So I don't want all of this to just be like me feeling very meh about everything without any sort of explanation, because I know that that's definitely affecting my view on things, and I feel bad because I want to give Emma and her taste in books a fair chance. But you know, sometimes I think you just have to admit that things are not going as planned. So I wanted to like throw that in here because I just think it's important to know. And I know I don't normally like include life stuff in my taste test, but it seemed necessary to include. I'm fine, like mentally, I'm feeling very like bleh. So I think that's again affecting my ability to truly enjoy books, but that's fine. It's cool. We're gonna finish this book and I'll tell you guys my final thoughts. Happy Thursday. I finished Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone, and I think I'm gonna give this book 3.5, 4 stars. I ended up really enjoying it, and I feel like the ending was both surprising and impactful, which is just what I had wanted it to be. I feel like the story is really good for all of the reasons I've previously stated. Mostly, I think the mental health representation is really good in this. I like that mental health isn't demonized or othered at all. Our main character is really kind of struggling with telling her friends about it, and I think that's something that a lot of young people struggle with. So I don't know, I think this is a really important book, and if you haven't read a book with a main character with OCD, I think this is a great place to start, because it seems like our author has done her research, so I really do appreciate that. And on top of that, I really liked the actual story arc of Sam. I really like how she started standing up for herself near the end of the book, and how she fell for this guy that she wasn't really supposed to fall for. I mean, it wasn't like taboo or anything, but friends didn't necessarily approve of him, so I like that she kind of stood up for him and yeah, stood up for herself and what she wanted and needed. So I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really good. Totally understand why Emma likes it, especially since she is studying to go into counseling, so totally makes sense as to why she would enjoy this book. And in general, I mean, it's just a good young adult contemporary, so really recommend it. It's got the perfect tone in my opinion. It's serious enough to where everything is taken seriously, but it's not so serious that it is depressing, so definitely recommend this to anyone who is even mildly interested. It's really good. But that is pretty much all I have to say about this book. Now we can carry on into Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. 9:07 a.m. on Thursday. I'm hoping to get this vlog up by like 2 o'clock. So what I really need to do over the next like 3 or 4 hours is listen to this audiobook, get this vlog edited and uploaded, and then I'll be good. I'll be done with this. I'm not trying to rush through this book per se, but the reading rush did start today, so I would like to do the majority of my vlogging for that rather than this. I'm gonna get started on this. I want to be able to give you guys plenty of updates for this book, because I know a lot of you guys either really enjoyed or really hated this book and want my opinions on it. So I'm gonna try to update you guys as often as I can. I don't know much about this book besides the fact that there's cheating and that there's some and that a lot of the writing is very quotable. So I don't know. I'm holding out hope that this is good. I've got the audiobook, so I'm just going to put my headphones in, do some work, and listen to this audiobook. Okay, so I am 30%. Is that cat hair? Yes. I'm 30% into Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I'm sort of enjoying it, which is surprising to say. I'm not at all reading this physically. I just happen to have a physical copy. It's actually a gift for someone. I'm listening to the audiobook exclusively, and it's actually pretty good. I will say I think audio is definitely the way to go with this book, seeing as it's completely told in interview format and you're getting multiple people's different perspectives throughout the story, and the audiobook does a good job at switching narrators and switching voice actors, I guess, for each individual person. So the voices are very distinctive, and you don't even have to know the name of the person really. Like, you don't have to know who's speaking to understand who's speaking, if that makes sense. The story itself is about our main character, Daisy Jones, and this band, the Six. The beginning of the book, I was surprised to find out, is about the Six and kind of how they came together, and then how Daisy eventually became a part of them. I didn't realize that like almost the entire first 30% of the book is about the Six and not Daisy. I mean, we get Daisy and like her background, but separate from the Six. That surprised me. It is just very like sex, drugs, rock and roll for the most part. There's nothing particularly groundbreaking or special, I would say, about the story, but it is nice to passively listen to. It's definitely an enjoyable read, and I don't feel like I'm upset that I took out Audible credit for it. I will say I am noticing a lot of similarities with other Taylor Jenkins Reid's like heroines, I guess. Daisy reminds me a lot of Evelyn in her I'm the star of the show, I'm important, I don't need no man sort of attitude, which I appreciate, I guess, but I kind of wish we would have gotten a slightly different character perspective. I don't know, like a slightly just different character. I feel like Taylor Jenkins Reid, like, she does try to make all of her characters flawed, which I appreciate, but they seem to all kind of be flawed in the same way. But in general, I think I'm enjoying this a little bit more than Evelyn Hugo, which is weird because I liked the time period that Evelyn Hugo was set in more than I am liking the whole 70s rock band thing. But I like that the cast of characters was a little bit larger and that we're getting multiple perspectives. I also really like Karen. I think she's a super fun character. I don't know. That's pretty much all I have to say thus far going into this book. I feel like it is straightforward. There's nothing like super crazy, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of twists like there were in Evelyn Hugo. I know that there's, like I've said multiple times, going to be some sort of cheating element. Anyway, I'm going to continue reading. I'll probably update you guys once I am 60% into the book, and then again when I'm done. But thus far, kind of surprised that I am kind of enjoying this. Okay, so I only have like 2 hours left in this audiobook, which is going to take me less than an hour to get through, which is awesome. I feel like I left off at a really good point in the book because it's the end of the Aurora like album creation section of the book. It's interesting because someone, I think it's someone completely random, gets interviewed and asked like why they like Daisy Jones or why she's inspirational, and they talk about the album cover and how she's so self-possessed and all this stuff. And I think that's really what the theme of this book is, or what this book is attempting to do. It's attempting to get you to believe that Daisy Jones is a self-possessed woman and that, you know, she doesn't bow to any man or whatever. But I'm kind of getting the opposite vibe in this book, just like I was in Evelyn Hugo. I don't feel like either of the heroines are that self-possessed. It's this sort of artificial self-possession, this artificial confidence that is so easy to see through. It's so transparent, and it's just not something that I feel like I relate to. I feel like people that are constantly saying that they're the one in charge, that they're confident, that they've got it all figured out, are usually the ones that don't. And I just feel that it's pretty obvious given Daisy's actions and just like all of the things that she's kind of going through that she is definitely someone who is not self-possessed at all. I'm not saying that you should look up to her or that she is like a terrible character. She's definitely flawed, but she's not someone that I personally relate to. She's making the book a less enjoyable read, which tends to happen with all of TJR's books for me. I just don't love her heroines. Really feel bad for Billy almost, because I'm like, you don't deserve all of the things that are happening to you. I really thought that he was going to be very culpable and responsible for anything that happens between the two of them, and thus far nothing has happened, but you can tell that Daisy is really the one that's putting all of this responsibility onto him and like trying to get him to cheat on his wife, essentially. I don't know, it's not my favorite. That being said, I'm still enjoying the audiobook experience. I think if I had to rate it right now, I think I'd give it like 3 stars, which is what I gave Evelyn Hugo. It's not, again, a terrible book. I just don't think that it's one that I'm personally connecting with, which seems to be the theme of this vlog, which is kind of sad. But I think that's to be expected doing these TSS videos. Sometimes you're going to relate to people's taste more or less than others, but I'm going to continue reading and try to withhold my complete judgment until I actually finish the book. But I will get back to you once I'm finished, and then we can wrap all of this up. Okay, so I have finished Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I think I'm gonna give this book 3.5 stars. I want to give it 3 stars, but I ended up enjoying this more than Evelyn Hugo, which I gave 3 stars, so I'm settling on 3.5. I enjoyed this book a lot more than I thought that I would, and some of my preconceived notions going into this book were definitely proved incorrect. There is actually no cheating that happens in this book. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. There's some like emotional connection between 2 of the characters, but the story isn't really about the romance per se. It's more just about each of the individual characters and how they sort of navigated fame and their lives during this tumultuous time. And even though Daisy as a main character I think was very fucking irritating, I enjoyed all of the other characters so much that I'm not quite as irritated, if that makes sense. Like, she was clearly the star of the show, but I would say the time spent on each individual character for the most part was like equal to the attention that Daisy was given in the book, which I appreciate because I really don't like TJR's heroines. So I don't know. I always love Taylor Jenkins Reid's endings. I feel like they end up being very poignant, and I did actually end up really enjoying the end of this book. And I liked that Billy and Camila's relationship ended up being kind of strong. I don't know. I ended up enjoying that aspect a lot more than I thought that I would. I did appreciate that. I liked that even though he was like faced with temptation, I guess you could say, he still ended up staying with his wife and fighting for what was important to him. So I did like that. Now, is this going to be an all-time favorite for me? Obviously not, but I am glad that I gave this a try. I really thought this was going to be very polarizing for me. I'd either love it or hate it. Ended up being kind of middle of the road, which is weird because I like should have definitely expected that given that that's kind of how I feel about most of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. But I am glad that I read this because now I understand the hype, I guess. Now I understand what people enjoy so much about this book. I don't know if I have anything particularly like wise to say, but I thought it was a perfectly enjoyable book. I can definitely see how Emma or a lot of other people could really enjoy this book, because I think if you like her brand of heroines and you like her writing in general, I think this is awesome. Like, it's definitely a book that I'm sure connects with a lot of people. It's definitely not perfect for me, but I do think it was good, and I do think that the sort of like moralism, I guess, or like quotableness and everything of this book tends to be a little bit less in your face than some of her other books, so I appreciated this one a little bit more than some of her other reads. So we're at the end of the video, so I figure we can wrap it all up and I can kind of talk in general about my experience with this video. I had a lot of fun filming this video. I think it's always worthwhile to taste test other people's taste taste in books because then you can understand where they're coming from, their point of view, and their recommendations even better going forward. I love this because now I can look at Emma's recommendations through a new lens, see what she likes that connects with me more. I think it'll be easier, like I said, knowing now like what kinds of books she's into. So I'm really glad I did this. The first book that I read for this video was Heretics Anonymous, which I gave 3 stars. I thought it was a perfectly enjoyable read, just not necessarily the read for me. The next book that I read was The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. Absolutely adored this, gave it 4 stars, and I'm excited to revisit this during Christmas time. Highly recommend you guys all pick this one up. Then I read Renegades by Marissa Meyer, also gave this book 3 stars. This again was not my favorite, but I think if you know what you like and you like Sky High, I think you're really gonna like this book. Then I read Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone. I ended up giving this book 4 stars as well. It is a really good exploration of mental health and what it's like to deal with mental health issues, therapy, etc. when you're in high school. And then lastly, of course, I finished Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. And I think if you like Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books, or you're really into like Fleetwood Mac, the 70s, whatever, I think you should pick this one up. That's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know this wasn't my most like zesty taste test that I've done thus far, but like I said, I love Emma. I love her videos. I love her recommendations. Even if this wasn't the most exciting thing, please go check out Emma's channel if you have not before. I'll leave a link to her channel in the description down below. But I'm gonna go and start in on my reading rush daily vlog. Love you guys so much, and until next time.